everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown, where we talk about 2A news and conservative views. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And today is Taco Tuesday.
It's raining tacos from out of the sky. Tacos, no need to ask why. Just open your mouth and close your eyes. It's raining tacos.
It's raining tacos out in the street. Tacos, all you can eat. Lettuce and shells, cheese and meat. It's raining tacos. Yum, 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 yum. It's like a treat.
That's right, folks. Today is Taco Tuesday, and today, the taco of the day is steak tacos. That's right. We enjoyed some wonderful steaks yesterday. So tender, so juicy. All we could do is take the leftovers and make steak tacos for today, and it was phenomenal. I got to tell you, it's when you have someone in the house, when you have someone who can cook the way my folks can cook. When I say my folks, I mean particularly talking about between my daughter and my son-in-law. They can burn, and for those of you who don't know, that means that they can cook. But no, I have very much enjoyed. At least that's what I had for lunch today. I don't know if we're going to be having tacos for dinner, but that's what I had for lunch today. So anyway, tacos being once again the quintessential American food, at least American. How we do it. We take stuff from other places that comes to the United States, and we make it uniquely our own, and we happen to make it better. And that's the cool thing about the I don't know if you want to call it the melting pot or the diversity of these United States. But I got to say, between music and cuisine, I cannot think of a better place to enjoy the diversity than here in the United States. I know some of y'all out there think diversity is a bad thing, but I don't know. When it comes to me, I was raised, my mother could cook anything. She had a wall full of cookbooks. She could cook anything that she wanted from any part of the world that she wanted. And so I grew up being used to eating like that. So I enjoy the diversity of cuisine that these United States have to offer. So I don't know. Maybe that ain't you, but that is definitely me. In any case, folks, we're going to be here today. It's going to be you and I. Mike is doing his Civil Air Patrol duty today. So we're going to have a good conversation. And in order to do that, you guys got to comment. If you're watching us live, and when I say live, I mean 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and y'all know the time zones in between. Those of y'all in the Mountain Central, y'all can figure those out. You know if you're live or not. Do me a favor. Go ahead and comment. I'm following comments on Rumble, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, on OpsLens. Go ahead, give us a holler. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what you think about this particular topic or whatever it is. And if I can catch your comment, and I think it's a good comment, I will go ahead and I'll share it with our audience. So please go ahead and do that. Let's have the conversation and make sure the conversation flows. But before the conversation flows, well, we got to do one thing, and you know what that is. We got to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start off with Hitman Industries. It's Hitman Industries. If you're looking for a barrel, if you're looking for a rifle barrel, you're looking for a pistol caliber barrel, whichever one you're looking for, trust me, they're the ones to go to. They have both, right? They also have Glock barrels, so you want to check them out today. Go to hitmanindustries.net. If you are a first responder and you've never purchased from them before, you're going to get a discount, so check them out today. Then we've got the California Republican Assembly fighting to help elect conservatives from school board all the way up to President of the United States, working behind enemy lines. The California Republican Party was once referred to by President Ronald Reagan as the conscience of the Republican Party. Go online and check them out at cragop.org. That's cragop.org. If you want to be a part of California's future today, join CRA. And then you go to Hog Holsters. You'll find them at hogholsters.com. They have got the best in concealed carry and tactical holsters available for you, no matter what your setup is, no matter what your firearm is, no matter what optic you're using, no matter what light you may have on there. Trust me, they can hook you up. Check them out today. Once again, hogholsters.com. Make sure you use the discount code, The Rundown. It's all caps, no spaces, one word, just like it is up there. and get a little discount on us. And then finally, if you are looking for any sort of outdoor gear, any sort of tactical gear, the place you got to go, uscombatgear.com. They have all things tactical but the gun. They have phenomenal prices. They have a great selection and fast shipping. Veteran owned and operated, uscombatgear.com. Check them out today. All right, let's go ahead and let's get into the news of the day. Joe Biden has pulled out the big guns, if that's in fact what you want to call them. Robert De Niro, let's put it this way. First of all, they have launched, the Democratic Party has actually launched a new ad campaign in honor or featuring a voiceover by Robert De Niro of all folks. This being reported by Entertainment Magazine, I guess I don't know if they're a magazine still anymore. It says here, after years of regularly criticizing Donald Trump on his own time, Robert De Niro has lent his iconic voice to one of Joe Biden's official presidential campaign commercials, attacking the credibility of the Republican candidate currently involved in an ongoing trial resulting from an alleged hush money scandal. So let me go ahead and play this commercial for you here real quick and give you guys a sense of exactly what it is that we're talking about. And do me a favor. If this were a drinking game, you know what I would have you do? I would have you count the lies that are included in this particular commercial. In any case, check it out.
From midnight tweets to drinking bleach to tear-gassing citizens and staging a photo op, we knew Trump was out of control when he was president. Then he lost the 2020 election and snapped, desperately trying to hold on to power. Now he's running again, this time threatening to be a dictator, to terminate the Constitution.
If I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath.
Trump wants revenge, and he'll stop at nothing to get it.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
All right, now, so to announce his campaign or this campaign commercial, they decided to dispatch Mr. De Niro to the trial, to be outside the trial, where Donald Trump's current the trial is taking place there in New York. And needless to say, Robert De Niro was in irregular form, or regular form for him. Once again, continuing with the lies.
And elections, forget about it. That's over. That's done. If he gets in, I can tell you right now, he will never leave. He will never leave. You know that. He will never leave. What does that mean? Is that the country we want to live in? Do we want him running this country and saying, I'm not leaving, I'm dictator for life? I hope this new ad campaign reaches outside the bubble to remind supporters of what a danger he is to our lives. This is not a threat. This is a reality. And that's why I've joined the Biden-Harris campaign, because the only way to preserve our freedoms and hold on to our humanity is to vote for Joe Biden for president. Really. We don't have a choice. On January 6th, while Republican lawmakers despicably tried to keep the loser Trump. All
right, where do I begin? All right, first of all, you notice the how do I want to put this? You notice he starts off with the complete and utter false thing about the whole the tear gassing of people, right? What he was referring to was, I forget the name of the square, and I probably should have looked it up before I did the show today, but it's been a busy day. But anyway, he's referring to when they were supposed to, it was, I think, outside the National Cathedral, they were supposed to, they had already slated that they were going to be clearing that space out. They let the people know, they let the protesters know, look, you are no longer here peaceably, you're no longer here legally, you need to go. And they got him out of there. And it just so happened that Donald Trump decided he was going to take a photo that day. Now, once again, he didn't tear gas anybody. He didn't order anybody to be tear gassed. But once again, the truth does not matter. When he talks about the fact that he says he's a dictator, that he will never leave. I have never, ever heard that. I mean, if there is anybody who is an authoritarian think about this. Think about the guy who has defied the United States, the Supreme Court of the United States, right? Who's defied the Supreme Court when they told him you do not have the authority to basically force the taxpayers to pay off people's student loans, to make a gift of public money to people. You don't have the power to do that. And yet he's turned around and done it anyway. Think about this as a president who basically has opened up the borders. And then there's no doubt about it. On day one, he undid a number of the programs, a number of the policies that were in place under the Trump administration that made sure our supporters were secure. Not only that, but during the campaign, he made it a point to invite them to come in. And now he's refusing to actually enforce by encouraging people to file for asylum, even though he knows that they are not eligible. And because they are not enforcing the border, because they're just now saying, okay, well, they're not actually getting hearings, they're just letting them into the United States. He is spending federal dollars to fly people in. Once again, all in contradiction of federal law. None of it is within his authority to do. And yet he's doing it anyway. But you got Robert De Niro, a gentleman who I will just refer to as a TV tough guy. You've got him deciding that he is what he knows that Donald Trump is supposed to be, quote unquote, the dictator or the tyrant. Robert De Niro is an idiot. Let's just be honest. And he, in this particular case, now he is demonstrating that he is a useful idiot, because he is now going to perpetrate the lies that the left tells him. Whatever the left tells him, he is going to believe. And let me just tell you right now, folks, I get it if you don't like Donald Trump. I get it if you don't like him. Personality-wise, he's not a likable person for many people, right? He rubs a lot of people the wrong way. But if you are going to accept and then propagate lies without any individual investigation, without any independent investigation, you're not going to bother to look into it yourself to find out if there's any fact behind it, then you are, by definition, a useful idiot. And you need to stop. You need to just quit. You are, by definition, at that point, part of the problem. And I understand that many of you will not get that. It is what it is. So we got my friend here, Mr. William Porter, stating De Niro would rather be a dementia patient. Would rather have a dementia patient as president than a true American hero with an absolutely proven 4-year track record. He's deluded. And he says, keep up the good work. William, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And you're right. At this point, it's a question of, and I'll be honest, if there's anything that Donald Trump is guilty of, it's having an oversized ego. But he has an oversized ego because there's a lot of stuff that he got done that first time. He has a right to toot his own horn because he did get a lot of stuff done. I mean, think about it. Barack Obama made it clear. Look, 2.5% economic growth was the new normal. That's all that's going to happen. That's the new normal. Within the first full quarter that Donald Trump was in charge of the economy, we were chugging along, and then we're chugging along above 3% the entire time, almost the entire time he was president. Right? I mean, minus COVID. All right, but for the most part, he did a phenomenal job. He got three different Muslim nations to recognize the right of Israel to exist. Had that been a Democrat who did that, they would have been nominated. They would have won the Nobel Peace Prize. He got North Korea and South Korea to sit down for the first time in decades. Hello, once again, Nobel Peace Prize, right? He got criminal justice reform that Democrats wanted and even Republicans agreed to. He got it passed and signed into law. He's got a solid track record. And it's funny, I have a friend of mine who is on the left who always wants to debate me, but never wants to bring up or cite any facts. Like, oh, well, the economy's doing great. Okay, according to who? Show me the numbers. Won't show me the numbers. When I talk about inflation, he's like, oh, well, inflation, that was all Trump's fault. I'm like, what? I said, how is it inflation was low under Trump And now all of a sudden inflation has gone through the roof. Well, that had nothing to do with Joe Biden. Then I point out all the policies that Joe Biden was involved in. How his policies increased reduced domestic fuel production, which increased the price of fuel. How he continued, after the first stimulus, he continued to flood the economy with government money, even with something called the Inflation Reduction Act, that everybody, even folks on the left, acknowledged did nothing to reduce inflation. Yet and still, it's not his fault. See, they have divorced themselves from the idea that the policies. Here's the thing: for the most part, a president they can't build an economy. They don't create anything. What they can do, what government can do, is get in the way. And that's what the Biden administration has done to the economy. He has messed the government, through government, he has messed the economy up. What Donald Trump did was very simple. He got the government out of the economy's way. That's what a free market economy needs. The more government intervention you have, the more problems you create. I mean, let's just be real. The economic downturn, the housing bubble that burst in the 2007, 2008, that was a result of government manipulation. Democrats were not the only ones involved in it. Republicans were right there, so I don't just blame Democrats. But it was government involvement because they was supposedly interested in making sure that people owned homes. And I'm all for that. But you don't do that by manipulating the market. When they started manipulating the market, they created loan products that were eventually going to go bad. They gave loans to people who should have never gotten loans, or they gave loans to people that were bigger than the loans that they ever should have gotten. They gave them and they allowed them to use risky products like interest-only loans with balloon payments or adjustable rate mortgages that eventually would wind up pricing them out of their homes. All of that was created as a result of government policy and manipulation. And trust me, I'm not anti-regulation in the sense that I do believe that you need some laws and regulations in order to protect people from evildoers. Because there are people just like in life, there are people who will seek to do you harm and seek to abuse you and take advantage of you. There are people in business who will seek to abuse you and take advantage of you. But when you start using, government laws can help to protect that from happening. But when you start using it to pick winners and losers, when you start using it to manipulate markets, you inevitably will create a problem. Every single economic issue that we've seen as a result, that we have seen where there's been a problem, almost every single one you can tie to some government policy, some place where the government was trying to pick winners and losers and evidently failed. And in this particular case, well, here's what you got. You got Robert De Niro, who is an idiot. And I don't know if I want to call him ignorant or if I want to call him an idiot. He's too old to be ignorant. Unless he's just senile. Judging from his performance in the movie The Irishman, I would probably say that he is senile. But all that having been said, no. Dude, Robert De Niro, sit down, shut up. Go play with your newborn child, because trust me, that child ain't gonna see most of you. He ain't gonna see you most of his life, because you're 81 years old. You've got many more years behind you than you do ahead of you. If I were you, I would focus on that young one and get out of politics because you're showing yourself to be an idiot. Just saying. All right, moving right along. Oh, I'm sorry. Speaking of idiots, Mr. Buttigieg, that's right, Pete Buttigieg, was recently interviewed, and he was asked about the investment that has been made in charging in these charging stations, and let's just say he wasn't able to explain why Biden has only built 7 or 8 EV charging stations. And I'll read a little bit of the story for you. It says here, Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg struggled Sunday on CBS Face the Nation to explain why the Biden administration has only managed to build 7 or 8 electric vehicle charging stations thus far. As Breitbart News has noted, while the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 allocated $7.5 billion for EV stations as part of building the national EV charging infrastructure, no EV charging stations had been built by the end of 2023. Only about 7 or 8 have been built under the program by April, while the fossil fuel industry has been cashing in by lobbying to have the stations built at existing gas stations. And by the way, here was his performance, or his explanation on Face the Nation.
The Federal Highway Administration says only 7 or 8 charging stations have been produced with a $7.5 billion investment that taxpayers made back in 2021. Why isn't that happening more quickly?
So the president's goal is to have 500,000 chargers up by the end of this decade. Now, in order to do a charger, it's more than just plunking a small device into the ground. There's utility work, and this is also really a new category of federal investment. But we've been working with each of the 50 states. Every one of them is getting formula dollars to do this work, engaging them in the first handful, again, by 2030, 500,000 chargers. And the very first handful of chargers are now already being physically built.
All right, so 7 or 8 in the first 4 months of this year. So if we extrapolate that out, right, that means there's three trimesters in this year. So that means I'll have 24 built by the end of this year. I'm still trying to figure out how he's going to get to 500,000 by the end of this decade. If you're building 24 a year, y'all do the math. After this year, there'll be 6 years left. And see, here's the reason why. The reason why this does not work is because government does not do anything efficiently or effectively. They just don't. It's not designed to. Whenever you have something that is led by the market, right? First of all, the worst part is they're going to decide. When I say they, I mean the Department of Transportation is going to decide where these things are going to be. They're not going to be looking at what the industry says. In other words, if the industry were doing it, if the market were doing it, they would say, okay, where's the best place to put this where we could maximize availability, maximize the number of people who are going to use it, and maximize our ability to make money, right? And the way they make money is by having them plentiful, having them available, and making sure each one is profitable, making sure they're meeting a need. That's how in a free market economy you make money. You meet a need, right? And if you want to make money in the long term, you continue to meet that need in a quality way without taking advantage of whoever is purchasing your product, good, or service. But in government, you succeed by simply issuing a good report, saying, okay, well, this is what we said we were going to do, and this is what we did. And yeah, so we need more money. If we didn't reach our goal, well, that's because we obviously need more money. Not we need to find more efficiencies. Not we need to take a look at how we're doing these things. No, they're not interested in that at all. That's not their thing. But you can't convince them of that. You can't convince people, and that's the reason why in the state of California, for example, we're going to spend about $100 billion on a high-speed rail train from Bakersfield to Fresno. Now, if you are in the rest of the country and you have never heard of Bakersfield or Fresno, or maybe you've heard of them but you have no idea where they are, you are not much different than many Californians. There is not a huge group of people, not $100 billion worth group of people who are interested in getting from Bakersfield to Fresno really friggin' fast. Not at all. But, once again, government decided that that's what they wanted to do. Now, the market decided that they were going to start to do something, and guess what they decided to do? They said, you know what? If we're going to do a bullet train or a high-speed train, why don't we do it from Los Angeles to Las Vegas? I'll bet you dollars to donuts that train will be completed faster and cost less money, be more efficient than the one that the government is planning, the government of the state of California. Folks, if you want to know how efficient the government can be, now think about this logic. Okay? Once again, this was part of a debate I was having with a good friend of mine the other day. He's talking about how great the economy is, right? So if the economy is so great, how come the state of California went from a $100 billion surplus to a $78, almost $80 billion deficit within just 2 years? Explain that to me if the economy is doing so well. It's because they don't know what they're doing. They're going to run the state into the ground. Folks, if you are looking for an example of what happens when you let the left run everything, take the best, the absolute best. And I feel very comfortable saying California was the crown jewel of the United States of America for a while, right? It was the golden state for a reason. And it was the fact that we were the golden state for a reason, largely because of our location, largely because of our natural resources, largely because of our weather, that California once again has held out against the policies of the left, have been successful in spite of. But we're already seeing the ball rolling down the hill. We're watching the mass exodus from California, right? We're already seeing it happen. We're already watching the tax dollars leave the state of California as we look to once again increase taxes. In the state of California, the top 1% pay 50% of the income taxes. Think about that. The top 1% pay 50% of the income. That's the investment class. And if you want to know why we're at a deficit, is because even the investment class is having issues. So here over at Rumble, we've got Brian. Was it Brian Music? Anyway, so what do you do about? Yeah. Some of these folks on the left, yes, they are. They do seem to be. And by the way, I never used to be. And his comment was about some of the sexual attractions of some of the elite on the left. And I never used to buy into some of that. But I got to tell you, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, yeah, I believe that they're all pedophiles. But I do raise this question. You've got the leaders of the Democratic Party are fighting really, really hard to keep gay sexually explicit content in our public schools. And I wonder why. I really do wonder why. I'm not talking about just books that involve gay characters. I'm talking about books that involve gay characters involved in gay sex, whether in written text describing it or in graphic novels with imagery. And I know some of you out there saying, oh, that's an urban legend. Doesn't exist. Trust me, it does. I wrote an op-ed on it. I got the links. I got the checks and the receipts to prove it. It's there. And they're fighting for some reason, right? The governor of California, the president of the United States, the superintendent of public instruction in California, the attorney general, by the way, two of which one is currently governor, the other two are running for governor. Yeah. So anyway, I'm just saying it does raise a question. I'm not buying, Brian. I'm not buying into. I'm not repeating your accusation. But I'm not going to say that it is without. I'm not going to say that it is without merit. How about that? I think that'll work. All right, moving right along. The real story regarding Isla Vista mass stabbing. That's right. I said mass stabbing. In 2014, there was an incident that took place in Isla Vista. Now, Isla Vista is actually the town where UC Santa Barbara is located. This was a story that hit really close to me because my son was a freshman at UC Santa Barbara when this occurred. He lived in Isla Vista, not far away from where this occurred. And the interesting thing about this is you always hear people complain and they talk about Isla Vista and they talk about the shooting. They talk about the shooting that was involved, right? The fact that law enforcement actually went to the dude's house he had firearms when they were there, but for some reason they didn't do anything. In any case, they talk a lot about the shooting, the fact that he shot people. But the reality is, and this was something that's being reported over at Bearing Arms, the reporting is half of the Isla Vista deaths were stabbings, and the media continues to push a false narrative. Ranjit Singh over at Bearing Arms writes this: awkwardness and social media ineptitude with the opposite sex are common among young men. For all their bravado and broness, a young man can literally shake in his shoes just asking a woman out on a date. But most young men aren't violent, let alone killers who take out their frustrations on others because of their underdeveloped dating skills. The 2014 Isla Vista killings were committed by a young, involuntarily celibate loser who was frustrated at his inability to find a girlfriend and establish a healthy relationship with a woman. The killings were the culmination of the jealous perpetrator seething for several years, whose violence began with low-scale attacks on young couples and women. The killings resulted in 6 deaths, 3 of which were stabbings. The perpetrator also used his car to ram pedestrians randomly. He shot and killed 3 innocents, yet this hybrid attack is repeatedly publicized by the media and gun control advocates, I repeat myself, as a mass shooting. If you follow the FBI's long-standing definition of mass shooting as involving 4 or more victims shot to death, Isla Vista doesn't fit the criteria. And, you know, Mr. Singh, I hear what you're saying, but let's be honest. When has the gun control community, when has the mainstream media ever really followed protocol or standard? They're going to call stuff. Their goal is to look for narratives. And what they've done here is they have focused on a narrative. And the narrative that they are focused on is it was a mass shooting. Even though only 3 people were shot and killed. Right? The fact that 3 people were stabbed and killed, why don't they call it a mass stabbing? It is definitely a mass casualty event, which is usually what I refer to these as, is not mass shootings, but mass casualty event. I don't even call them normally a mass stabbing. I just, did that because I thought you guys would find that interesting that I called it a mass stabbing. Anyway, it's important that we pay attention when we look at these incidents, when they're reported by the police, when they're reported by the media, and then we follow up later to look at the details, because they almost never report the details. Or when they do, it's usually somewhere way down at the end of the article, because once again, it doesn't fit the narrative. You notice there wasn't a big move in California to ban knives after this mass stabbing. He was ramming people with their cars, attempting to kill them with his car. You notice they didn't ban cars in Isla Vista or in the state of California. Well, they are kind of trying to ban gas-powered cars in the state of California. So I don't know if there's a correlation there, but I think that's more global warming. So global warming, global cooling, climate change. Yeah, one of those, whatever floats their boat for the day. Anyway, but I just think it's important that we're always constantly pointing out these narratives. So when people bring it up to you, if you talk to anyone who brings it up to you, bring that, when if they bring that one up, remind them. No, it was a mass stabbing, or at least as many people were killed by knife as were killed by gun. All right, moving on to our final story. Biden economic advisor can't explain economics. Now, this was one that I heard a while ago, and now I just want you to read. I want you to hear a little bit about who this guy is, and that will then give you a little bit of a better understanding of why this clip that we're about to watch is so even more interesting. It says here, a viral clip of an interview with President Joe Biden's economic advisor, Jared Bernstein, shows the official struggling to explain why U.S. government chooses to borrow money when it can just print more. Quote, oh no, I'm not going to do his quote. Let me go ahead. I want you to hear it for yourself. So here it is.
The U.S. government can't go bankrupt because we can print our own money.
It obviously begs the question, why exactly are we borrowing in a currency that we print ourselves? I'm waiting for someone to stand up and say, why do we borrow our own currency in the first place?
Like you said, they print the dollar. So why does the government even borrow?
Well, again, some of this stuff gets, some of the language that some of the language and concepts are just confusing. I mean, the government definitely prints money, and it definitely lends that money, which is why the government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do? They sell bonds. Yeah, they sell bonds, right? Because they sell bonds and people buy the bonds and lend them the money. Yeah, so a lot of times, at least to my ear with MMT, the language and the concepts can be kind of unnecessarily confusing, but there is no question that the government prints money and then it uses that money to, yeah, I guess I can't really talk. I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, because it's like the government clearly prints money. It does it all the time, and it clearly borrows. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this debt and deficit conversation. So I don't think there's anything confusing there.
All right, now it says here, while Bernstein has specialized in economics for decades, and just note if you saw his title there, it says that he was chair of the Council of Economic Advisors for President Joe Biden. Anyway, obviously for decades, he holds no degrees in the field. According to his biography on the White House website, Bernstein has a bachelor's degree in fine arts from the Manhattan School of Music, a master's degree in social work from the Hunter School of Social Work, and a master's degree in philosophy and a PhD in social welfare from Columbia University. So evidently the Columbia University must be the thing that he uses to justify this because it's Columbia. Now, I got my degree in financial services and investment, so I do know why the government issues bonds instead of just printing money. Well, two things. Number one, when they issue bonds, they are in fact borrowing money. In other words, they're saying, we're going to give you this bond, and on that bond, we're going to pay you X interest rate for X period of time in order for you to give us money, and we're going to hold on, we're going to use that money, and we're going to pay you that money back. We're going to pay you that money back over a period of time, right? We're going to make payments on it. So it's basically they're taking out a loan, and that's what a bond is. Now, the question was, why do they issue bonds or borrow money while at the same time, why don't they just go and print more money? Well, because if you just print more money, then you don't know what the overall, you don't have any idea what it is in fact going to cost you. See, anytime you flood a market with something, anytime there is more of anything in a market, it devalues it, right? If there's only one bottle of this particular nice tasting scotch, then people are going to be willing to pay a lot more money to get it. If there's millions of bottles of this nice, delicious tasting scotch, you're going to be able to get it for less money. Anybody who's into consuming fine liqueurs or fine spirits knows that after a certain dollar amount, and you can say what that is for you. For me, I think that's somewhere around $50. After $50, you're not as much paying for quality as you are paying for rarity, right? Rarity gives something more value. And so the problem is that if you just print more money, if you just flood the market with more money, you then do exactly what the government did, which is you create inflation, meaning every dollar is worth less, right? That's the reason why your dollar has 20% less spending power now than it did. We're not issuing more bonds. The reason why we're not issuing more bonds right now is because, well, it's more expensive than it was. When you could issue bonds at 2%, 1%, that was cheaper borrowing, but now you got to do it somewhere closer to 5%. So the cost of borrowing money has doubled, is 2.5 times what it used to be. So rather than borrow money, the Biden administration decided they're just going to print money, meaning we're just going to put money out there. That's what the government did. That's what the government's done, and that's the reason why your dollars are so much worth less. Now, mind you, I'm not the chair of the President's Council of Economic Advisors, but it made sense to me. I could explain it, and you might have now figured out why the Biden economy is doing so poorly, why Bidenomics is such a failure. Because you got people who have no background in economics chairing is the head of your economic advisors. I'm sorry. That's just dumb. Or senile. One of the two. I venture, I don't honestly, I have to be honest, I don't know that I paid enough attention to Biden to know that back in the day, was he senile or was he dumb back then? I believe he was dumb from what I've heard, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's just now, he's just suffering from dementia, and that's the main issue now. Regardless, either way, dude you see now why his economy is doing so poorly, because that guy is the chair of his Council of Economic Advisors. All right, moving on, it's time for our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces. Get your hog holster today. All right. Well, let's see. This first one here, you're going to love this one. You got to love Robert De Niro because he is a he is a clear example of someone who is suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. And that will bring up our first one here. It's for those of you who are just listening to the audio version of the program. It says it's got Robert De Niro crying with a pacifier in his mouth and a Never Trump sticker on it, or button sticker, whichever one of the two. It says, "You talking to me? Yes, I'm talking to you, you moron." And by the way, just so you know, when he made that little tirade, that second video that I showed you, he was outside the trial of President Trump, and he was sent there by the Biden administration, who, by the way, also stationed circus clowns, jugglers, lion tamers outside the Trump trial because they are trying to distract from their poor record, pretty much. And they're also trying to distract from the trial because I think it's becoming increasingly clear that despite the fact that everyone is against him and the cards are stacked against him, it's looking less and less like the president is going to be convicted of anything. Now, there is one thing that is standing in the way, and that is the judge and the jury and the what's called the jury instructions. And that's why, once again, according to the Babylon Bee, can you say satire? Babylon Bee, satire. It says, judge instructs jurors they need not believe Trump is guilty to convict him. And that is pretty much the best chance that they have of getting a conviction on Donald Trump is through that order. And then finally, this one here, also coming from the Babylon Bee, and this deals with the 7 or 8 EV charging stations. It says here, report reveals $7.5 billion in government EV charger spending has purchased 1 4-pack of Energizer AA's. Batteries are expensive. I did not know that they were that expensive. Ugh. All right, good stuff. All right, folks, well, that's going to be it for today. But before we go, let's give another quick shout out to our sponsors. You got Hitman Industries. Just go to hitmanindustries.net. Rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you today. And then we've got the California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party. Check them out today, cragop.org. And then you've got Hog Holsters for the best in concealed carry and tactical holsters. Go to hogholsters.com. And finally, get all things tactical except the gun at uscombatgear.com. And with that, we will call it a day. We very much appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and encouraging your friends to do the same. We will be back tomorrow on Hump Day. Till then, y'all take care. Have a good time.